You are now listening to
Likely to Dispute,
hosted by Monkas, Reed, and Tyler. How's everybody doing? It's Cevan, aka the Monkas. Joined with me as always is Reed and Tyler, and this is episode 19 of Likely to Dispute.
We have a very fun episode today. We are finally done with our 12 team breakdowns. We covered the whole league. If you missed them, go back on the channel. All 12, all of them at least an hour of 20 minutes, most of them closer to 2 hours. So I hope you have 24 hours in your day over the next month to listen to all of our breakdowns and all of our thoughts. But after that, we've had these planned for quite a while. We are going to do one episode per position, and we're going to give each of our dynasty ranks by position. So those of you who do listen will get a very deep understanding of how to take advantage of us in trades and how we truly value these players. But in the end of the day, I think this is a really fun episode. But first, we're going to start with a question of the day from Tyler.
Yeah, I thought of this earlier today. The question is, if you could pick one NFL player on your current team to manage your fantasy team for the rest of the season, who would you choose? Let's just assume that whoever you choose has your best interests in mind, that anything that they do is to help you win the championship. I have my answer, so if you guys want me to go first, I can.
Take it.
Okay. I'm going to go with James Conner here. Now, James Conner was a careful selection. Here's a few reasons I selected him. First and foremost, maybe the most obvious, James Conner has been in the league 8 years. He's been around the block a time or two. I think he knows the lay of the land and of the NFL pretty well at this point.
I think James Conner's a ball knower.
I do think James Conner is a ball knower. I also think that, him being maybe he's recognizable, but he's not Kyler Murray or Trey McBride or Budda Baker on the Cardinals. So he may not be getting all the media attention. So, he's not dealing with the outside noise as much, and he can just focus on, setting me a good lineup, trading away my wide receivers when I get a good offer for some picks, something like that. And, on the off chance that he's injured, which he has been, more than once in his career, then he can just spend more time looking at my team, mulling it over, figuring out how to beat the Monkas from week to week. So I'm going with James Conner, I think. I think he's the perfect guy to run the squad.
That segues perfectly into my answer because my answer is Jonathan Brooks because that dude has nothing else to do this year other than win me a championship. So I'm going with Jonathan Brooks.
That is a very solid answer from both of you. Mine, I didn't see this question before, so looking through my team, I'm going with Josh Dobbs. Now, one thing
Very
about
wise
Josh
choice.
Dobbs is he has alopecia, which, if you don't know, it means he has an inability to grow hair. And so that is one less thing he has to do. Instead of combing his hair in the morning, he can manage some fantasy. He also is very smart, I believe. He's something like an astronaut.
He has an aerospace engineering degree, I believe.
Perfect, which you have to be smart to get that one done. So I think you do a pretty solid job. He, also being a quarterback, you gotta be pretty smart to be one of those.
So what I'm hearing, Cevan, is if you had to spend less time combing your hair, you'd have a better team.
No.
Honestly, last year you might have won both championships if you spent less time on your hair.
I don't comb my hair. I wake up like this.
According to Tyler's hot take, Josh Dobbs also may be starting a game for you this year in your starting lineup. Flashback to 3 months ago when we did Cevan's team breakdown.
The problem with you picking Josh Dobbs, Cevan, is I like the logic, except he might have to cut himself, but would he be too prideful to do so? So he'd be clogging a roster spot when someone like, I don't know, someone's on the waiver wire, Darren Waller or something.
That's a good point.
There is more cuttable guys on my team than Josh Dobbs right now.
You have a lot of cuttable guys, to be fair.
Name two.
Tyson Bagent. Flashback to your episode again.
Okay, also not on my team.
Okay, a fun question of the day there. I like my team to come out on top, not because of Jonathan Brooks, because my team is better than your guys.
That is not the point.
Okay. Fun question of the day, and getting on to the meat and potatoes here, though. as I mentioned, we are giving our top 30 dynasty ranks today, but we're going to follow a similar format to the team summaries. We're going to have a couple of accolades that we'll go through, and then we'll do some more quick hitters, talk about some specific rankings. But um, as you can probably imagine, Cevan, Tyler, and I all went through and ranked our top 30 quarterbacks in a dynasty perspective. Um, Supposedly from the perspective of if we did a startup draft today, this would be the order in which I would take these players. But as with anything, once you get past the elite players, a lot of it becomes team dependent. Like if you get later in the draft, do you need a steady quarterback you know is going to produce? Would you rather take a higher upside shot? So there's really no way to truly get a completely context neutral ranking, but we did our best. So again, like even if I have somebody at 7, and that doesn't necessarily mean I will straight up trade for the guy that's I have ranked number 8. We have tiers baked into our rankings as well that you'll see later in the episode, but we gave it our best shot. I know for myself, I can't speak for these two, but I had a really fun time making these. We've already had quite a few disagreements on players, on rankings, on tiers. Uh, Usually trying to rage bait Savan into getting mad about something, and usually it works. So hopefully this pod can clear it all up. We'd love to hear in the chat if anybody has any other disagreements with our rankings. If they think one of our rankings is great, bad, please let us know. Especially those of you in the fine dining league, let us know. Take advantage of us in trades from these. So, anything else from you guys before we get started?
This is this is maybe the most dangerous episode we've done yet because in a year from now, I'm gonna start saying some stuff, and you guys are gonna pull this up and say, "Remember when you had so and so ranked above so and so?" So we're getting vulnerable here.
I
Yeah,
agree. Putting your
yeah,
stamp on stuff like this on the internet to never be removed is dangerous. I'd agree with that.
yeah. I did have fun with this, and it's fun seeing how you were able to do the plus minus versus consensus. That's a cool way to look at the disparity in some of the players we have. I mean, some are within one or two of each other, but we've got multiple that are up in the double digits.
Mhm.
So it is,
And that's actually a good point. I forgot to mention. Throughout this episode, we will be mentioning consensus versus consensus. The consensus that we used is not the average of our rankings. We're using the KeepTradeCut rankings. Again, a very beneficial website. It can provide a lot of value if used in the right context. And for us, we used that. We did not look at KeepTradeCut at all when we made our rankings. We made them purely out of the goodness of our hearts, seeing what we thought. And then after that was when we compared our rankings to KeepTradeCut. So consensus moving forward, when it's referred to, we'll be speaking specifically for the KeepTradeCut rankings. So jumping into it now, above consensus. So this is just somebody that each of us had ranked higher than the KeepTradeCut has them ranked. So you'll see under the name, we have the QB10, QB18, QB19. That is our ranking. And then the plus or minus in the future will be how it is compared to consensus. So, for example, Cevan has Brock Purdy ranked as QB10, which is 4 spots higher than consensus, where KTC has him at QB14. So a little bit of a different format, similar overall in the style, but a little bit different format than the team breakdowns. But I think it's important to clarify that the plus is compared to consensus and the rank is what we rank them at. So 3 names here, 2 of them, a little bit of nepotism with Tyler and I. So we're going to start with the one objective person here. Cevan, Iowa State Cyclone, Brock Purdy. You have him 4 spots over consensus, one of your top guys versus consensus. Why do you have Brock Purdy ranked so high? He's a drop back passer.
yeah. So I've got him at the back end of QB ones. If we're ranking this for a dynasty startup, for him, he's played 3 years in the league. Obviously, he was Mr. Irrelevant, but kind of took the league by storm. And I was a vocal hater of him. But Trent can attest to that. Um, but you can't deny what he's done on the field. Looking at 2023 with a fully healthy roster, he was QB6 in total points playing all 17 games. Like you said, he is a drop back passer. He doesn't provide much rushing value except for last year, which I think is going to be more of an outlier year because all his weapons were not available the whole season. Um, with the context of that, obviously last year didn't go as one might expect with the super team not being available. He was still QB 14 in total points, uh, despite missing 2 games. So a high end QB2 last year. Um, I'm a believer in Kyle Shanahan. He also got paid this offseason a boatload of money. So he's tied to the 49ers for the foreseeable future. And with what he provides in the passing game, he's very efficient as a passer. 2023, he put up 31 passing touchdowns with 2 scores on the ground. And so I think that's more of his um, uh, baseline. I would take 23 as his baseline. And that's um, obviously he only played half the year, his rookie year. And so going into year 4, scheme hasn't changed. CMC's back. There's year 2 of Ricky Pearsall. George Kittle's obviously there. Christian McCaffrey's back and healthy. And so I think he gets back to his 2023 form, and then they
Mhm.
continue to just build around him. And I like his floor more than his ceiling. Um, but he's someone I'm perfectly comfortable having as my quarterback 1 in a
Mhm.
super flex league.
Yeah. I think like the way I think about quarterbacks is when it comes to rushing is 3 tiers. Like difference making rushing, can rush for sometimes, but not really a main strength, and then statue. And I think Purdy fits like perfectly into that second tier of like he can add value, he can scramble, he will get a couple of touchdowns per year, but
Yep.
it's not going to be driving his value like the other 2 guys that we have on the
Yep.
screen here. And I think a lot of that last year came from the fact that McCaffrey was hurt. Like he's
Yeah,
just the ultimate check
exactly.
down, not necessarily a merchant, but he's also a very good route runner. So not just check downs, but also he can torch linebackers in covers that are trying to get him one on one, either into the flat or across the middle. Like him having McCaffrey back will be so huge for, like you said, boosting his passing numbers back up to that 2023 level, but
Yep.
also not forcing him to scramble nearly as much when you're paid as much as he is now. I would rather not see him take the hits that he is. And for me too, I am his QB 12, so 2 spots above consensus at QB 14. So I have no problem with this. I'm a Purdy fan as well. Tyler, any thoughts on Brock?
No, I mean I'm right there with you guys. I think I'm with consensus here, so I'm not going to say I'm, you know, much higher. I'm not, I mean, I'm at consensus, so I'm fine with
Mhm.
the opinion. I'm just not as high on him.
That's fair. Another thing I should mention here as well is that some of the especially this slide and the next slide, which you can probably guess will be below consensus, they're not necessarily numerically the greatest that we have different from consensus. They might be, but they aren't necessarily always just the highest number we have. They might just be somebody that we feel confident in the ranking where they are relation to consensus. So, for example, Purdy was tied for Cevan's top one, but for other people, it might not be the number one. Like Justin Fields is not Tyler's number one highest above consensus. It's just somebody that we feel confident in that we have ranked above consensus. So going off of that now, we're going to go over to Tyler here. Justin Fields, we picked him up last year in the draft when half backup quarterbacks, half starting quarterbacks were going. Inaugural draft before Russell Wilson got hurt. So you were drafting him as a backup Steelers quarterback, but obviously he got 6 starts last year, looked solid, and then got a 2-year deal from the Jets here. You have him QB 19, which is 5 spots above consensus, which frankly surprised me. At QB 24 is where KTC has him ranked. So um, put your personal bias aside that
Yeah.
he's on your team, but Justin Fields 5 spots above consensus.
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago. I guess I'd have to go back and look, but in 2022, Fields finished as QB7, so I imagine his KTC ranking at that time had skyrocketed. And obviously, it's kind of ebbed and flowed from there, and it's obviously worse now than it was at that time. The biggest knock on Fields in his career has been his passing and turnovers. In 2022, he his passing yardage of 240 yards or more. And his best year was just one game. And I know that's a bit arbitrary, but in only 6 games last year, he had 2 games above 240 passing yards. And again, I know that's arbitrary, but I think Fields has displayed to a degree that he's grown as a passer. I'm not saying he's up there with Herbert, Mahomes, whoever, but I think he's made his passing game relevant enough where teams just can't, set a spy on him and watch for the rush. I think Fields has shown that he can do enough with the arm to combine that with his legs to make him a really relevant, um, a big threat to the defense. And so I think Fields, if he can, like you said, Reed, he's on a 2-year deal. So I think that shows that the Jets believe in him enough to give him presumably that long of a leash, and there's no real competition behind him right now. I think that this is the lowest Field stock will be for a while. I think Fields will come out of the gate hot, similar like how he did last year, and he'll shoot up people's rankings. So I'm all in on Fields this year. I think the passing is there. I think the running's there. And not to mention that this should be an improved offense with better weapons like Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, and passing coordinator from Detroit coming over in Tanner Engstrand with new head coach Aaron Glenn. So I'm in on
Mhm.
Fields this year and beyond. I think this is kind of the rock bottom of his dynasty stock for a while, and it'll grow from here on out.
Yeah, obviously I'm sure you're glad your trade last year with Cevan fizzled out to keep Fields because that would have been a tough one to deal with seeing him sign as the starter. So
Yeah.
um I have Fields above consensus as well, but I have him for another category. So I'm going to save my thoughts because my thoughts are pretty similar to or pretty relevant to where I have him ranked. So Savan, I don't think you have Fields in any of these. So do you have any thoughts on Fields here?
Yeah, obviously big Fields fan. I've got him at 22, still 2 spots above the KTC consensus. But I think if we looked at this from a different perspective, Fields is kind of a quarterback to me. You have to rank on a per year basis. And while
Agree.
my ranking doesn't I don't know the word, it doesn't
Reflect.
reflect. Yeah, it doesn't reflect that. I mean, to me, if Justin Fields is on the field, he's almost a must start. Obviously, he's got weekly QB1 upside, which is what you want to have in your quarterback position. And so lower on him because in the overall dynasty aspect of it, just because we've never seen the consistency yet. Um, and it really, the 2-year deal really, they couldn't get out of it. They can get out of it after 1 year. And so it's still kind of just a waiting thing for me with Fields. It's been 4 years and he's on his third team going into his fifth season. So we'll see. But yeah, great, great quarterback to have on a per year slash per week basis.
hmm I want to join in now, but I will wait because I want to talk about him in a different section. But I'm also
Yeah.
a Fields fan, so I will have a second round of field discourse here shortly, I'm sure.
All right.
Um,
Next slide.
Speaking of weekly quarterback one upside,
Oh,
we have barely talked about him on the pod at all this offseason. In my episode, we kept it very brief for obvious reasons. Those of
wait.
you don't
You
know,
mention his name like every
well,
episode.
you mention Ian's team every episode, so we'll call it even. I think that the you guys don't know how often he gets brought up in our chat, usually by Savan, jealous that he doesn't have him. He told me he was interested on Sleeper. He put the interested in button the other day, so he sees the way this is going. Anthony Richardson has shown much improvement in Colts camp so far this year. The mechanics, the footwork, the maturity, all of that looks better. Right now, unbelievably, well, believably, but unfathomably, he is ranked as quarterback 29 on KTC. Um, I have an aggressive ranking. I have him at quarterback 18, which is not surprising. That is my child. He's my highest on my nepotism meter is really high. But to me, at the way Colts camp has gone, which I've been very up with, as you could imagine, he's very much in line to win the starting job. Everything looks good, and the second he gets announced as the starter, his stock should jump up probably to the low 20s, meaning like 20 to 22, 23 on KTC. 1 or 2 good weeks, and he's probably pushing top 15 already on KTC. So while this seems like an aggressive ranking, I think that he's I give him like an 80 to 90% chance right now of being the starter. Like basically, if he doesn't get hurt throughout the preseason, He should be starting week 1 at this point, which was obviously a huge knock on him. The the rushing upside, he and Fields both clearly fit into that tier 1 rushing, makes them an elite option. And any improvement to his passing at all, like he finished last year, I believe, at QB 24 in points per game, and he completed less than half of his passes, as everybody knows. Did not get help with drops, did not help himself off the field with the preparation, did not help himself on the field by his lack of ability to take the easy stuff to move the chains. So I think with the way that he's shown the improvement, his willingness, his accuracy to take the short stuff, his ability to continue to throw the deep ball. Last night, we're recording this on Friday night. Last night, the Colts had a camp. He hit 2 deep balls. So all the arrows are pointing up here. And for me, if you haven't read my article, please go read it. I didn't accrue as many views as I should have for this legendary quarterback, but I feel like people love to hate on him. And I think that people have forgotten just how hyped everybody was for him last year. Like when you get a quarterback with this much rushing upside, this much of a weapon at the goal line, and this quality of weapons that he has around him in the Colts scheme, I think people are just really, really low because he's a really easy guy to knock on for every reason you can think of on and off the field. Not every reason off the field, but for a lack of preparation, a lack of leadership, a lack of maturity. All of that seems to be trending in the right direction if this offseason is any indication. So, for what it's worth, both of these two fellas, some more than others, have him above consensus, probably from myself, keeping them updated to a point that they don't care anymore on what's going on. Not many people have their first round pick from last year fighting for their job. So, um, yeah, I'll open it up to you guys. If you guys have any more thoughts on Anthony Richardson, if not, we can make this quick and say you guys are a fan.
Uh,
Yeah, you go, Ty.
okay. I was just gonna say I like him more than consensus, but yeah, consensus I don't think is quite accurate in this case with like thinking of AR as a starter. So I
Numerically,
I
he is your highest player above consensus, but like
yes.
you said, a little bit of a jank ranking from KTC right now.
Yeah. I read your article. It had me partially swayed. Um, I I like him more than I did a month ago, and that is in the low 20s for me. So I guess I'll leave it at that. I don't want to say too much about him because I don't want to say I'm quite on the same train as you, but I
You
do
shouldn't
like
be.
him. I'm not, trust me. So I like him more than I did. Uh, he's not. I'll take Fields. I'll
That's
put it
fair.
like that.
And when you think about it, like they're kind of the same bet. If this year goes poorly for either of them, probably not a starter next year. But when they're playing now, they're both probably, borderline to borderline QB1s to with, top 5 upside if everything goes well. So when you
Hmm.
think about it, they really are a very similar bet. I just think there's more that we haven't seen from Richardson that we have seen from Fields. But obviously Fields' floor is just ridiculously high. I'm saving my Fields thoughts for later. Sorry. Cevan, any other thoughts on
Yeah,
Richardson?
yeah. For me, it's obvious that yours is more of the prediction route.
Correct.
Um, I've got him at 27, and um, for me, it's all like I've seen all this camp stuff too. It's great. Uh, that's what Colts fans slash Anthony Richardson fans are hoping for is that the development continued. Um, the only thing for me personally is I've got to see it
Mm-hmm.
against real
1000%.
teams. And so um, I'm completely fine with being wrong on Anthony Richardson. It's better for the league. It's better for Reed's mental health. I am a fan of Reed, so I am a fan of his mental health. Um,
Wow.
so yeah,
That hits home.
I'm not rooting for him necessarily, but I'm not rooting against him anymore. Um, yeah, I still have my doubts personally. Like I said, we're gonna have to see in September uh, what plays out, but
Mm-hmm.
all signs are that it is going in the right direction, and he is great for fantasy at the end of the
Well,
day, which is what we're
That
playing.
I have something to say, but
go ahead.
I was just say that's pretty wholesome for you, Savan, to talk about Anthony Richardson like that just for week 1 to come around and him to throw an interception on the first drive and you say Richardson's hot ass.
Well,
And
yeah, I will be all over that, even in the preseason, if we're being honest. But I mean, he's got all the opportunity in the world to go prove it. Year three, um, he's still 22, but
23
we'll
now. But
20.
yes.
Okay, he's 23, but yeah, going into year three, same system, which helps. It seems like bringing in Daniel Jones has actually motivated him, so
Yeah.
it's all positive from what I've seen.
Um, the Colts play or have their joint practices next week with the Ravens and then into their first preseason game. So no slouch of a team that they're going to have their joint practices with. But yeah, all like you said, all Colts camp is just kind of fantasy land at this point when the bullets start flying and he's got real people on the other side that aren't his teammates. We'll see what he's really made of, but I'm hopeful. So that was the most civil discussion I've ever had with Cevan and Tyler for that matter on Anthony Richardson. So you guys witnessed history here first. So a very good section there. And naturally, we're going below consensus now. We have one proven quarterback, one rookie, and one small sample. So we're going to start with Tyler here, the unproven rookie, unlikely to be the week one starter here, but a first round pick. Jackson Dart with the Giants. KTC has him as quarterback 23, and you are 5 spots below consensus at quarterback 28.
yeah, I thought Jackson Dart was when the NFL draft was going on, I didn't think he was necessarily a first round quarterback. And he was similar to Kenny Pickett in that matter. Do you guys remember when Kenny Pickett went exactly?
I believe he was
20th.
20th or 21st. He was like an early 20s
Okay.
pick.
I don't know if I'm not saying Jack starts Kenny Pickett, but it just kind of feels like that, like a late end forced QB1 because he's
Can,
there.
can I interject real
Yeah,
quick? The
please.
difference to me is Pickett fell to the Steelers and the Giants went out of their way to trade back in.
And
Yeah,
the Pickett was the only quarterback in the first round that year. And I think the
Yeah,
that's a
Steelers were
good
just
point.
really desperate. And he went to Pitt, so he was nearby. So
yeah.
Sure.
but I appreciate the comparison. I know what you're going for though.
Yeah, I mean that's all fair. Yes, you're right. It's not exactly the same. So yeah, that's helpful. For me, I've never been a big Jackson Dart fan, and I don't have a lot of stats to back this up. This is again through the Dynasty perspective as Reed introduced. So in my mind, right, you have Brian Dable who's on a hot seat, and then you have Russell Wilson who's starting the year. And so, if Russ struggles, Jackson Dart goes in to a situation that is likely less than ideal, maybe the worst in the league. And then, what happens after this year, who knows? With a possibly new regime and Jackson Dart still being there. It's just kind of an awkward timeline, in my opinion, with Russ being there right now. And um, I, I, I don't know. I just don't see how the situation gets brighter for Dart, especially this year. So maybe he'll get a chance, maybe he won't, but I I've never been a fan of the player. Like I said, I didn't think he was a first round quarterback based on what I saw. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that's why I'm below consensus on him more or less. There's nothing super, intellectual about this take, but
It's a vibes-based take.
more or less,
Yeah.
I mean, does any of that
No,
have
I was going
water
to
to you
comment.
guys or no?
I was going to comment that I think your point about the hot seats being super important and kind of underrated because like it would not be the first time that a coaching staff or front office regime was on the hot seat, took a quarterback, they all get cleaned out after the year or even during the year, and then the new regime wants to bring in their own guy because last season was a mess. And that puts
Exactly.
Dart into a really weird scenario because again, if he shows promise this year, he's probably the coaching staff with New York and stuff probably isn't going to get go even if the season may not go, how they want it to. If Dart shows promise, that probably, I'm not going to say it does, it probably buys them another year to see can we build it more around what the promise we saw last year.
Yeah.
But if a new regime comes in, he gets Josh Rosen and
Yeah.
when new regime wants to bring his own guy, then he's just kind of in no man's land. And, if they get fired, it probably didn't go spectacularly. So then who's going to give him another opportunity to start? and then yeah. So I think that's a really good
You
point. I
you
don't, go
yeah.
ahead.
You summed up my thoughts a lot better than I did. I do like the Josh Rosen comp there, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, I don't have a ton of thoughts on the player. I don't watch film, but he kind of falls into that second tier where, from what I know, like he doesn't have game breaking rushing upside, but he's not a statue. So I just again not great weapons in New York outside of Neighbors, solid but not great. Offensive line had been a problem there for years. Andrew Thomas is hopefully healthy, but personally, I am a Dable believer. I think he's a good coach. I think his system works well. I just think he's been hamstrung at quarterback for his entire career. He got Daniel Jones paid $14 million this year. So I, I I am also below consensus. I think actually all three of us are below consensus, which will come up later. But yeah, I agree with your thoughts as well. Savan.
Yeah, for me, it's kind of touching on your last point with Dable. Um, whether you believe him or not, it obviously hasn't gone according to plan. Obviously, he inherited it, and he inherited it. What did he do?
Inherited.
We all got
He
what you're
did,
going for.
yeah, he did that with Daniel Jones, and so him being on the hot seat, this is I don't know. Jackson Dart's career basically lies on if Dable gets fired, in my opinion. I would love for them to see it through. And obviously, they have the hardest strength of schedule. They're
Wild for playing a last place schedule.
yeah, and they're either I think they're tied for the lowest win total in the league. Um, and with that being said, I don't think anybody expects them to have a good year. And so I think worst case for him, he gets thrown in too early before he's ready because if anybody watched any of the offseason stuff, his whole cadence in college was just a clap. He never had to, they look to the sidelines, get the cards, and then he claps his hands. So he's got a lot of a development to do. And I think the quarterback room specifically is a perfect situation to be in. I personally like the foundation that they're starting to build. They've been investing in the offensive line over the last couple of years. They did it again. They just moved their top 10 tackle inside to guard. That tends to work a lot when high draft capital tackles don't work out. The Bears recently did it with Tevin Jenkins. Sorry for that. But so I like the establishment. Obviously, they have Malik Neighbors. They have an insane defensive line. Um, I like the foundation they're building, and I hope they just see it through with Dable and Dart for Dable getting to draft his own quarterback. I just know with I forget their owner's name off the top of my head, but I know at the end of the season when they were doing their exit meetings, he said he's running out of patience, and so uh, I think it's going to be hard for Dable and Shane to keep their jobs, and so I get why you're below consensus. Um, but that was more just me talking about the situation. I don't know. I I'm iffy on Dart, the quarterback, but I think I like Dable, and so I it to me it really just depends on if he can stay around for one more year, even if this year goes poorly.
And I have Michael Penix Jr. here. There's no personal bias here. This is not beating Savan's team down to the ground. For me, I've mentioned this on past episodes, but for me, Penix scares me purely because I think people are assuming he's already going to be good when in his 3 game sample he was not like he wasn't terrible by any means, but he was not fantastic. And my belief is that he's going to fall into the category of guys who are probably a better NFL quarterback than they are a fantasy quarterback. Like 3 season-ending injuries in college, the knees are gone. Like I just don't see a lot of rushing upside for him. And given the fact that his arm is an absolute laser, like I feel like he's going to be someone that elevates his pass catchers a lot. And as a Drake London owner, I'm a fan of that. But I'm worried about what kind of ceiling does he actually have? Like to be a true QB1 as a pure drop back passer, like you need to be consistent year over year, touchdown to interception, smart football. And I think maybe he develops into it as he gets older and knows what he can and can't get away with, which is a really important learning process. especially for guys with really strong arms. But I'm just worried that he's just not going to have the consistent week to week upside that you want. And for me, I put him down, as I said, 7 spots below consensus. I have him at QB 26. KTC has him as QB 19. And I have him in a tier of guys like Tua, Geno Smith, Sam Darnold, guys like that were similar to him, where drop back passer. On any week, he could throw 4 touchdowns, but on any week, he could have 0 touchdowns. But he just doesn't have the rushing upside to kind of to buoy him. So that factored in with his age. I just am a little bit worried. I'm not out on Penix by any means. I think he could end up being a solid QB2, but I'm just lower than consensus for myself. So we'll go to Cevan last since he's got Penix. So Tyler, your thoughts on Penix?
I echo a lot of the same thoughts. I don't have too much else to add. I'm not as harsh as you are, but I have him as QB 24, so he's down there as well for me.
Cevan, we'll kick it to you now because you are the owner of Penix in our league. What do you think about my ranking with Penix? And
Yeah,
what are your thoughts overall?
yeah. So I have him at 21, which is 2 spots below consensus, 5 spots above you. Um, I didn't try to put any bias into this ranking, but kind of like you said, he has a laser arm. The Falcons, despite having a defensive-minded head coach, have a putrid defense. So I think the Falcons could be a fun team to watch this year. They're in a garbage division.
Like a
Um,
kind of like a Bengals of last year, like the perfect fantasy team where
yeah, something
defense is terrible and they're in shootouts all the time.
exactly. And they have an elite offensive line. I know they lost Drew Dahlman, but he's going to be replaced. They're going to be fine. So he's protected well. He's got one of the best running backs in the league in Bijan. He's got one of the best young wide receivers in Drake London, and he still somehow has a 24-year-old
He's
Kyle
24
Pitts.
still.
So, I mean, he's surrounded by top 10 playmakers, an elite offensive line. Um, Big thing for him going into year 2 of the same scheme. Some people are indifferent on the loomingness, that didn't work, of Kirk Cousins. I
Is he
like
looming still? I thought that was pretty well in the past.
just the fact that he's making $40 million to
That's fair.
stand behind him. I personally like that. The other big thing to me, I think, was a big tell. The Falcons kind of said it. They said it through their actions by trading their 2026 first. Um, they see all the behind the scenes work, and all the off-season stuff I've seen for him has been really positive. It's mostly just his bomb tight spirals in the
They're
bucket.
so
I mean,
pretty.
nobody can deny his arm talent. But yeah, I agree with you on the rushing upside. The uh, the season-ending knee injuries are a thing. The only caveat I will add is he has played 3 straight full healthy seasons. I know he didn't play much last year, but it does still count. And
Yeah, no,
so,
sorry. I wasn't necessarily saying I think he's going to get
yes,
hurt. I was just saying I
yes,
don't know how much athleticism is left in the knees.
correct. And so I agree with what Reed's saying. He's going to have to be one of those pocket passers that hits those thresholds. But I think um, that is very much in his uh, cards and a likely outcome. I don't necessarily think he has the like Burrow ceiling of pocket passers, but uh, I think there could be like a Herbert-esque
Hmm.
ceiling. I'm not saying he's going to hit that ceiling, but I think that's the back end QB1 area is where he could settle if
Mhm.
things go right. And so I'm the most bullish on him, but I think my 21 ranking for him was pretty fair.
Yeah, I was going to say you are the highest of us three, but you are still below the KTC consensus, which props to you for being lower than consensus on your own guy. But um, that 19 just feels really aggressive. And I might be too bearish on him, but that 19 feels really aggressive for someone who was not that good in his 3 game, for fantasy purposes, not that good in his 3 game sample and is already 25, I believe. So,
Yep.
um, Interesting ranking, but we'll see how it plays out. Very big fan as a London owner. So speaking of certified haters, Cevan, as the resident Bears fan, has Jordan Love as his below consensus pick, has him as QB 18, and KTC has him as QB 12. Notably, as we'll talk about in a little bit, all three of us are slightly below consensus on him, but Cevan is the most bearish. So, Cevan, give us the case to hate Jordan Love.
Yeah, so he was my lowest consensus
Hmm.
differential. Um, a little bit does have to do that with me being a Bears fan. I really did try and take it out of it, but he fell where he fell. And I've kind of been, I'll admit, I've been a little flippy floppy on him based on some of these team episodes. Um, where I have him ranked as QB 18, he's literally never finished as QB 18 or lower. And so uh, I'm not gonna lie, this one is way more just disliking the person. I don't have super cool facts to back this up. Most of the stuff I've seen, honestly, has been him getting back to what he was in 2023, which is QB5. Um, so I really don't have anything to say. I dislike the person more than the
Hmm.
player, and
Okay,
I more hope he's bad than believe it. So I'm
that's fair.
sorry, all
Well,
LTD fans that are listening. This one's on me.
we'll talk about Jordan Love a little bit later, so I'll save Tyler and I's thoughts because we have
Yep.
a slide on him later. So after below consensus, we have somebody that we think is going to rise throughout the year. Not necessarily someone that we think has more value now, but someone that we think by the end of the year could be ranked significantly higher than they are now. So, Savan, you've already given your thoughts on Penix, but you have him as your riser, who you currently have ranked as QB 21. So I guess I'll pose the question for you specifically. If everything goes really well for Penix this year, like in your ideal, realistic world, where do you think he sits in the dynasty ranks at this time next year?
If all things go according to plan, is what you're asking?
Yeah, like it, not like
The
crazy,
perfect
like
season?
50 touchdowns per
Yes.
se, but like he has a quality season that you could realistically expect from him, like let's
Yeah,
just
like
say 30,
4,000 and
35
30.
touchdowns, 10 to 15 picks, 4,000, 4,500, somewhere in
Yeah.
there, like a
Yep.
really good pocket passer season. Well, where would you envision him landing at next year?
Yeah, so um that's a very good question. Just looking at where it's at now. Yeah, I think I still think Herbert's a good comp. I think right around QB 10, 10, 11, 12, somewhere in those back three.
Hmm.
Uh just mostly due to it would be his first year doing it, so uh it would still be people would want to see the consistency and that there is probably no rushing upside. And so uh I think yeah, around QB 10, 11, 12 would be ideal.
Hmm.
Now, as far as I'll keep this part short. I touched on it already, but um we're we're all in agreement you can't deny the arm talent. And so in the percentage chance that he does hit, and they are in like those shootout games. Some quarterbacks you just want because they're not necessarily on a bad team, but they're going to be in
Hmm.
negative game scripts based on whatever circumstance. And so, um, yeah,
Yeah,
I don't know if I even
that's
finished
fair.
that thought, but
No, that's good. I think I'd put his ceiling just a little bit lower, probably like in the QB 12 to 15 range. Because like you said, even if he has a really good year, I think there's still skepticism of the first year someone's doing it. Whereas like you said, Herbert's been
yep,
around for quite a while now. So I think like having him in that tier, like for me, I have like Purdy, Kyler, Jordan Love kind of in that 12 to 15 tier. And I think if he has a really good year like that, we could see him up there. But there's just so many good quarterbacks right now that I feel
yep.
like I'd struggle to see him get much higher than that, but definitely possible. Tyler, any thoughts on Penix and or transitioning to Lawrence?
Nothing else on Penix. I
Okay.
can talk about Lawrence if you
Yeah.
want me to.
Lawrence,
Okay.
you have QB 17 right now. Obviously, clear situational upgrade, probably, hopefully, the best situation of his career, the best weapons of his career, best coaching, best scheme of his career. I don't think you're probably alone in this choice. But give us the case for Trevor Lawrence to be ranked
Yeah,
higher. And in an ideal scenario, same question, where could you see him ranked next year if everything goes really well?
sure. Yeah, I like you said, it's I'm not going to be the only one who has this opinion. I think that case is pretty simple for Lawrence in that we've seen him perform at a high level before. I mean, this is another guy like Fields who had a lot of success in 2022. 2023 and 2024 were less than ideal for Lawrence. But the big thing with him is last year his injury was on his non-throwing shoulder. You mentioned the new system coming in. Trevor Lawrence is still only 25, so it's not like his career is, almost over or anything like that. He's still plenty young, and I love him in a dynasty outlook to just rise from here. If you guys had to guess, I looked it up. Where do you think his all-time positional peak was on KTC? QB what?
I bet after 2022,
3.
yeah, I'd probably say like 5.
Okay, well, you guys were both a little bit more bullish than
Really?
KTC, but you proved my point, I guess, to a degree. He was QB 6. That's his all-time peak. I guess there's plenty of names up there that were pretty high,
Yeah, I
but
mean, when you have
yes,
like Lamar and Pat and Josh, like probably wasn't going to pass them, but that
right,
22 year was really good and it was the second year. So like everything was
exactly.
pointing up.
So, yeah, I don't think 23 or 24 derails his career or anything like that. Yeah. Going from QB6 to QB17 is a big jump, probably an overcorrection in my opinion. Best case scenario, I think Trevor Lawrence could be as high as maybe QB8, maybe. I don't know. QB8 to 10, that would probably be my range there. But yeah, the case is pretty simple for Lawrence this year. I am excited to see how he plays, and I hope he throws Tank Bigsby a few passes this year. That'd be great for me.
Yeah, I'm also on Team Lawrence here. He was in consideration for my riser pick, but I thought it was kind of cliche, and I figured I would just support you in your
Uh,
argument.
I didn't
Not
mean to be cliche.
No, not
Sorry.
cliche. Cliche is not a bad thing. I just wanted to have a different answer here. So,
Yep.
um, Cevan, captain of the Trevor Lawrence hate club, any thoughts here?
Yeah. Um, we all have him at QB
Yeah, the
17,
only player that we all had ranked at the exact same spot. I was just going to mention that.
which is kind of crazy because I don't, just based on my thoughts and what I've said, I don't know if 17 is too high or too low if we all have him the same, just based on me personally. But yeah, no, I definitely can see the world where he rises. He's got the playmakers all over the field. They also have a garbage defense. So at least for the 2025 outlook, the game script should definitely benefit him. He's another guy, pocket passer, highly touted. Got one of those generational tags. It's another thing of consistency with him. This is going to be his first year in a new offense. So people might have to be patient with him, but I think it's really going to depend on, again, tying this back to Travis because uh, people don't realize, well, I don't know if we've said it on the pod at least, but Brian Thomas Jr. was his splits with Mac Jones versus Trevor Lawrence are night and day. And so while Brian Thomas, I don't want to turn this into a BTJ thing, but while his talent's undeniable, we really haven't seen the connection with Trevor. And so, um, but giving him another playmaker with Travis, those splits are still going to determine a lot. They have a lot of fantasy um, implications. I don't mean to make this not about Trevor, but uh, it, I'll just reiterate it. It's a consistency thing for me. So I think I'm not comparing him to Penix, but I don't. I personally don't think he could get up to like that. I think 8 is kind of a tall task. I think he would be more of a back end QB1 thing for the similar reasons of consistency. Not to keep echoing the same thing, but
Mhm. Yeah.
I see the path where he's a back end QB1,
Mhm.
at least.
Yeah. I'm a fan as well. I have nothing new to say. I think the system's going to do, it's underrated. I think people don't bake in just how bad the system and the situation has been for him and how much the system helped the Buccaneers last year. Like the Buccaneers were top five in like every offensive category last year. And obviously it's not just the system, but they're that's going to be a huge help to get that in with the almost the Broncos, Jaguars playmaker. So I'm a fan. Was almost put him for mine, but instead I have Bryce Young. I have him at QB 20 right now. Trying to get on Cam Thorne's good side because he is the president of the Bryce Young fan club. But I think when you look at what he did after the benching, if he was doing that from the start of the year or even like last year, like he would be probably a borderline top 12 dynasty quarterback right now. And I think when you get a young player that struggles out of the gate, so many people are quick to write them off. Shout out Anthony Richardson again. People are so quick to just call it. And I think that having the second year in the system now, his first year, like again, just chaos throughout the coaching staff. He got Canales. They got something that figured out. They got it. It works. He got a brand new number one top 10 pick receiver. Their offensive line and Chuba Hubbard mashed really well last year. They added more backfield help. And again, for the third time here, another team that doesn't have a very good defense. So he could be forced to score a lot of points to keep up. So I'm a big fan. He again kind of falls in that second tier where he can add value with his legs, but not necessarily a main weapon. But I think it's underrated how good or how mobile he is, not just on scrambles, but like even within the pocket. Like he's so small, he can become really hard to sack. And I think that creates such a huge advantage that helps him get out of sacks and then helps him get on the run. And he's really good with the deep ball. Like people don't really think about a short guy like him being good with the deep ball, and he's pretty damn good with that. So I'm a fan. I don't necessarily think that his ceiling is a top 10 QB, but again, and with a good year, like 10 to 15, I could definitely see that happening. I feel like he's someone that is more on the rise than people are probably giving him credit for at, I believe his KTC ranking right now is right at my rank here at QB 20. Both of these fellows are a couple spots below consensus, but I wouldn't fight that. But yeah, I'm a fan. So, Cevan, any thoughts on Bryce Young?
I think what you said about if he started from the whole year, playing how he did after the benching, I think what you said was a little bit too much of a tall task considering it was only I think it was 4 games to start the season that before his little breakout. Sorry, I was one of the ones who was completely out on him after his rookie year, and then adding in the first 2 weeks of last year, uh, he looked like burnt toast. And then somehow Andy Dalton gets hurt, and he has 2 weeks off, and he is just they're incomparable what he was from week 1 to week 7, I think it was last year. And so I like the trajectory. Um, Getting Tetaroa is huge. Uh, Actually having an alpha wide receiver one really does make all the difference sometimes. Look back to, I'm not comparing Bryce to Josh Allen, but once in year 3 when Josh Allen got Stephon Diggs, that was the start of his takeoff. We're going into year 3. They got him an alpha wide receiver one. And so it's going to be huge to see if he builds on what how he finished last year. Um, I think he'll where do I have him? I have him
QB
as
23.
QB
Both
23,
of you
which
two have him at
is
23.
oh, I'm
Three
tweaking.
spots
Oh,
below
which is
consensus. Yeah, I
yep,
am at consensus.
yep. So I could see him being more in the. I don't think he's gonna be too much of a riser, but at least from my rankings, I could see him being in the 16 to 18 range.
Wow.
Which a mid QB2 is always valuable to have. Um, Trajectory arrow definitely pointing up on Bryce.
Tyler, any thoughts on Bryce?
Yeah, I borderline had him for another section. I don't know if you want me to spoil it. It hasn't come yet, but
If you don't,
do
if
you
you
want-
didn't select, nah, we'll talk about him later.
okay. Yeah, I have him at 23. I don't have too much to add.
Okay, Bryce Young, uncontroversial. It sounds like, except not everybody's agreed. Okay, riser, naturally, we have a faller, somebody we think throughout by the end of this time next year will be likely ranked lower than where they are now, if not considerably so. Tyler, you kind of have a hot take here as a former slash partial Broncos fan coming off a very good rookie year. where they added help in a very good system. Bo Nix QB8 as a faller. So why is he a faller, and how far do you think he falls to this time next year?
Oh man. I'm kind of a Bo Nix hater. I didn't like him in rookie drafts last year, mostly because he was an older quarterback and I didn't think nothing in college was particularly impressive until his last year at age 23, 24, whatever that was. So to see him have as much success as he did last year kind of surprised me a bit. The Broncos have one of the best offensive lines they did last year, and they're returning, I think, most, if not all, of those pieces. So that plays a big factor in his success, and so I'm not discounting that. It's just from a dynasty perspective, offensive line isn't something I feel like I can really easily project year to year. And so I think as that varies, that may have a role in Bo Nick's success. He had a lot of clean pockets last year to give him time to throw and make deliver good passes to his receivers. I'm pretty skeptical about the pieces outside of Bo Nix. I like Evan Engram and I like Cortland Sutton. I don't know what to make of the running back room. I know the Broncos were a little bit one-dimensional last year towards the end of the season, and I think there could still be shades of that, even though they did add J.K. Dobbins and R.J. Harvey there. So I'm skeptical that Bo Nix will be able to improve or keep his stock this year. I think there's a chance that the book may be out on him just a bit this year after teams have gotten a whole off season to study his film and maybe adjust to his game. There's a lot of hypothetical and what if there, but I think he will fall to maybe somewhere around QB 12-ish,
Hmm.
maybe outside the top 10. I don't view him as a dynasty top 10 wide receiver myself. I'm sorry.
Quarterback.
Or yeah, quarterback. I also lied. I have him at 10. So
Sorry, no, that was my bad. That's a typo for me. That he does have him at QB10. I was looking at my rankings. I have him as QB8, so that's
okay.
100% my fault.
Okay, no, you're good. So yeah, that's Bo Nix for me. Yeah, probably a little bit of a hot take considering he was what he was last year, but
Hmm.
I'll own it. I'll stand on it.
Savan, your thoughts on Bo?
Yeah, so he is QB8 KTC wise and for you as well, Reed.
Hmm.
Um, please don't compare this to Drake May, but I think QB8 is a little bit of rookie fever, and everybody knows.
He's not a rookie though.
I know, but all we have is what he did as a rookie.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, you see this all the time. That's how Anthony Richardson was
Hey,
QB.
so we can
Just
talk about
let me
Richardson, but we
finish.
can't talk about Drake May.
Let me finish.
Come
Let
on,
me
man.
finish. That's why Anthony Richardson was QB7 during our inaugural draft was based
S-
off what he did his rookie year.
CJ Stroud.
Same,
Sorry.
exactly,
Sorry,
exactly.
sorry. I didn't know if you were gonna say it. I'm mad to make sure it got said.
Nope, you're good. Same with like Justin Fields. So I mean, we see this all the time, guys who get pushed up going into new dynasty startups right after they have a breakout rookie season. And a lot of maybe not a lot of the times, but some of the time, there's sophomore slumps and you have big fallers. And so, Bo Nick, I don't know how big of a fall it could or will be, but I'm more on the Tyler side and seeing how he could be a potential big faller. Now, he does have Sean Payton, um, who is a proven, established offensive head coach, and they did try to get him some more playmakers, whether it was the draft or free agency. They brought in Pat Bryant in the draft, and they brought in RJ Harvey in the draft and Evan Ingram and J.K. Dobbins in free agency. And so they're trying to surround him with more. I think getting a run game could improve the situation. Um, but they also have a year more of tape on him that they didn't have last year. So uh, the Broncos will be a fun storyline to watch this season.
Yeah, I have no new thoughts. I did not consider him for this spot. I think his situation is basically the exact same as last year with improved playmakers. So I have faith in Sean Payton to minimize what he's not good at and maximize what he is good at, get the ball in playmakers' hands. And he does provide, he's borderline tier one as far as his rushing upside. He provided a lot of value with his legs last year, whether that be out of necessity because nobody was open or that it's a strength of his. But I would be surprised to see him fall out of QB1 range this year. So I guess we'll see.
I want to add one more thing real quick.
Hmm.
I saw a clip today in one-on-ones. Pat Bryant like cooked a rep against PS2, and it was it almost made me a riser, if you know what I mean.
Doesn't sound like a fourth round rookie pick to me.
It does not. But I
Okay.
thought that was cool.
Yes. Uh, Cevan, Tua coming off another concussion last year, dysfunctional Dolphin system, and something that you've been a loud advocate for that this is the year that it falls apart for them. Is this injury based? Is this performance based? Is this a mix? How much further can he even fall from QB 25? Because I think anything lower than this would just be a backup quarterback, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that is one thing I thought of. Uh, Him already being rated or ranked so low. But as far as why I think he's going to be a faller, I am out completely on the Dolphins team, not individual players, but the team. They've got 3 years of film on McDaniel's offense. That's been figured out. Um, you can't deny the concussions. I've personally never had a concussion, let alone four or five. So I'm sure as a quarterback, it probably, if it hasn't already started the effects, it will. I'm not a doctor, so I don't take what I say as anything. Um, but yeah, they're already having what seems like turmoil between Tua and Tyreek, taking whether they're meaning to, it's coming out, it's being portrayed as taking shots at each other based on whatever Tyreek said. They're building a relationship. Tyreek came out today and basically said what he would do differently on offense, which is never good if you have players critiquing what the coaches are putting out there. McDaniel doesn't, to me, at least how he's portrayed, he doesn't seem like the leader of men type. Um, and so I'm out on the Dolphins. Tua has had a good year before. Um, I just think they're gonna crumble.
Hmm.
I think McDaniel's gonna be the first coach fired uh in season this
Yeah.
year. So
I
that's just where I'm at.
I have him as QB 25. Tyler's him as QB 24. So we're all pretty close. I just didn't consider him for this section because I don't think there's any chance he's not starting next year. And to be lower than this, he'd basically have to be not starting. So unless he retires, I can't see him getting lower than this. But at the same time, I am not on the Dolphins are going to implode this year train. I think they're still going to put up a productive year. Not necessarily, again, a contender year, but back to closer to productive levels of offense. So I disagree here, but I'm also not super convicted. I mean, it's just kind of Tua at this point. It's kind of is what he is, and
Yeah.
I just don't know how much ceiling is left unless, they find the fountain that brought them to success in 22 and 23. So, Tyler,
Nothing else.
okay. Jared Goff here. I have him as my QB 19. Uh, on KTC, they have him as QB 21. So I'm actually two spots above consensus, but just general worries with the Lions this year. Obviously, they lost both coordinators. They scored more points than anybody last year by a very wide margin. A lot of those came in the air, a lot of them came on the ground. I'm just worried about general overall Lions touchdown regression. And then in that, it hits Jared Goff because he is firmly in the statue category of adds basically nothing other than the occasional sneak touchdown with his legs. So, if he's not throwing 35, 40 touchdowns, you're not getting a whole lot of upside. And then at that point, he's the age he's at, the weapons that they have are fantastic, but how much can he actually sustain as a fantasy quarterback without any rushing upside and not being the far and away beating the crap out of everybody offense that they were last year. So nothing against the player. He just falls into the category of drop back passers who, if you don't score a ton, then and the Dolphins are still going to be, or not Dolphins, Lions are still going to be great, but just worried about some general regression for me. So I think he could be closer to the Tua range at this time next year, depending on how the why do I keep looking at Tua's picture and saying Dolphins, how the Lions season goes, and obviously the rushing attack is very effective there as well. So,
I have a question for you.
mhm,
You stated they had a lot of offensive touchdowns through the air and on the ground, and I was
facts.
just wondering um, what other possible way they could have an offensive touchdown.
No, I was saying that they scored a lot of touchdowns, but they did it both through the air and on the ground. It wasn't heavily skewed one way like a
Okay,
lot of teams are.
gotcha. Yeah, following that, on Jared Goff, this one I feel like could have been in our other category being hardest to rank because one, his age, so he doesn't really have a lot of room to go up in Dynasty, in my opinion. But there is a lot of room to go down. I'm probably more in the area of he'll stay relatively the same or potentially go up. I think the Lions' playmakers are undeniable, and so while they did lose their offensive coordinator, um, I think guys like Gibbs and Amon-Ra will make up for a lot of deficiencies that their maybe new offensive coordinator might have. And so I still think they're going to be a good offense, and you always want pieces of, or I guess
Hmm.
you usually you want the quarterback of a good offense. So I think he probably will maintain value if I had to
I
make
think
my call.
the way you put it too is that like after the season he had last year, how much higher can he actually go? Like even if he repeats that, given his age and his
Yeah,
status from the fantasy, like how much higher can he go? So if the only direction he can go is neutral or down, at least from a faller perspective, hedging my bets there makes a lot of sense.
yeah.
So, Tyler, any thoughts on Jared
Yeah,
Goff?
he's been a QB1 the last 3 years, so and I don't feel like, in my opinion, he's shown too much of a sign that he won't be around there or somewhere around there this year. So I'm with Cevan. I think he maintains where he's at here.
We're not on a first name basis, so I wanted to include the last name there. So,
Right, right, right. Unlike Jameer.
Jameer,
Yes.
notably a one name player, like lots of other guys in the league. Off of fallers now into a high volatility player. This is just somebody that we think has a really wide range of outcomes headed into next season, and was potentially someone that we thought about ranking higher and lower at the same time. And I don't know if you don't mind, I'm going to start with myself because JJ McCarthy is someone that I have no idea what to do with. And I think I ended up with him in a really good area because I have him in a tier with Bryce Young, Justin Fields, and Cam Ward for very different reasons. And I still have yet to get to my Justin Fields section, but for me, like the belief in just JJ McCarthy almost completely comes in the system. Like it's not like he had anything in college where he was like obviously, he won the national championship with the Michigan at a loaded roster. He was not slinging the rock around like you're getting a really solid player. I don't know how much rushing upside he has. I believe he probably falls into that second tech category where he can add value, but he's not a rushing quarterback. So then again, is he going to be able to replicate the type of production that Kirk Cousins, who was never valued very highly in Dynasty, but was always solid, or Darnold, who people are still very skeptical of his real success here with the Vikings last year going to the Seahawks this year. So I just am really skeptical, but at the same time, I I could also absolutely see a path where he has a good year and then suddenly he's a top 12 dynasty quarterback next year because Kevin O'Connell is a very, very good coach. The system he employs is very effective, and we saw what it did last year. Just to me, I'm at QB 23 and I'm the lowest of the bunch here. KTC has him as QB 13, which to me is absolutely whack that he is that high. So um, I know JJ McCarthy was going to be a hot topic here because Tyler and I both are very low on him, and Cevan is perfectly in line with consensus, and he's noted that he's a fan of McCarthy. So um, we'll go to you last, Cevan. Tyler, what are your thoughts on McCarthy here? You have him ranked low as well, not as low as me, but you have McCarthy as QB 21 when again his KTC is QB 13.
Yeah, I can't rank someone who's not in their rookie year but still hasn't played an NFL snap that high. I mean, there's just too many guys who have been too good for me to say JJ McCarthy has more
Hmm.
dynasty value. So it's like I feel like there's been mixed reports with him in camp lately. I know camp isn't everything, but there's probably some validity to camp reports. So I'm I'm pretty out on JJ McCarthy as a QB 13 in Dynasty right now. I think he's kind of in the for me he's kind of like Bryce Young where it's like I know Bryce Young has obviously played, but you need to see it before you can move him any higher. So I'm out on him at the consensus rank there. I think that's way too high and that's
Hmm.
disrespectful to players that are below him who have shown so much more than he has. And not
Hmm.
that that's his fault, but it's just
Yeah.
that's a little bit disrespectful in my
I mean,
opinion.
I mean, you look at him again, like you said, has not played an NFL snap. Brock Purdy is ranked directly behind him, who's had back-to-back seasons of either top 12 or borderline top 12 in points per game. Cam Ward, who we'll talk about in a second, and then Kyler Murray, who is consistently a top 12 quarterback with rushing upside, and Baker Mayfield, who finished as a top five quarterback last year. Like that to me is just absolutely crazy that he is ranked ahead of them. It's disrespectful. And I think, again, that shows how much the draft capital is subconsciously held against Purdy. Because if Purdy was doing what he was doing now as a first round pick, nobody would question putting him comfortably inside the top 10 quarterbacks. He'd be one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL just because
Yeah.
of his draft position that is either consciously or subconsciously held against him. And then it props up players like McCarthy, where he was a high draft capital in a good system, even though we know nothing about him. So I liked the points you made there. I think you did a good job with that. But Cevan, in line with consensus here, try to just sway our minds here. Give us the case for McCarthy being ranked this high.
Yeah, so when I was putting this list together and you guys saw I had him that high, you both let out a laugh,
Yep.
which was
This
also
is
always refreshing.
can confirm.
I did not know his KTC value was right where I had him until a couple days ago when I saw you put it in there. And so um, I would say mine is more of a projection. I don't it kind of similar to your Anthony Richardson thing, more of a projection. I agree 100%. Brock Purdy should definitely be ahead of him. Um, in terms of KTC, I reflect my own thought in Brock Purdy being ahead of him, so I'm glad that lines
Hmm.
up. Um, but as far as JJ McCarthy, the player, um, I've said it on multiple episodes. Uh, Kevin O'Connell quarterbacks, all they do is finish inside the top 12. Kirk Cousins for a stretch of years and then the stretches of games when Kirk was out, you were able to start Nick Mullins and Josh Dobbs in fantasy. Um, Getting into JJ McCarthy, he was drafted number 10 overall, I believe.
I believe so.
Got traded up for, even if it was just one spot. He got traded up for. And then, yeah, to me, you just match JJ McCarthy, really any quarterback. It just happens to be JJ McCarthy with Kevin O'Connell. It's going to hit. Uh, Needless to say, you have three first round picks to throw the ball to in Justin Jefferson, a top two wide receiver in the league. Jordan Addison still is a first round pick, regardless what we think about him. And then TJ Hawkinson, obviously 1 year removed from ACL injury. And so he's, you add in, they already have a very good offensive line, and then they add to it again in the first round and then they bring in another complimentary back to pair with Aaron Jones. The offense is set up to for him to just be dropped into, and uh, I think if he is just competent and efficient, he will. At least in 2025, if he's competent and efficient, he'll be in the top 12 as a finish this year. And so, while I do believe he does have a high volatility, I am on his higher range of outcomes, and it, it it ties into that like rookie fever type deal is why I believe he's so high. Nobody still all it's complete unknown with him, which reflects a bit of his rankings. Like before Caleb ever took a snap last year, he was, I believe, QB6 in startups, and Yeah, so I'm in on JJ. Uh I think he could have an argument to be as high as the top 8 going into this time next year.
Wow. Okay, okay,
Um
sorry. I overreacted. I thought you were saying now. Never mind.
no. But yeah, so I am the opposite of these two. I'm really in on McCarthy.
Sounds like you should have been the one to pull the trigger on the trade then.
I never made an offer. Me and Sumner's negotiations never go well anyways.
That's fair. Um, okay, well, Cevan, we'll go to you next. You've got Tyler's first round rookie pick from this year, NFL 101, Cam Ward, supposedly the least talked about 101 in recent memory. High volatility, you have him as QB 15. His KTC ranking is QB 15, so you have him right at consensus. Why was he someone that was high volatility for you?
Yeah, it's interesting where he falls ahead of guys like you mentioned like Kyler, even Trevor and Baker. Obviously he's the 101 in what people call a weak quarterback class. Um I'm not sure what we think about is it Brian Callahan, right? That's
Correct.
their coach. Yeah. I I'm not sure what to think. All he's had is Will Levis, who is hot garbage. Um very skeptical of the playmaker situation. It's literally just a bunch of old heads on their second and third teams. Um, like Tyler Lockett, they brought in on a 1 year deal. Calvin Ridley's 30 plus. Even I'm in on him this year. They just lost Traylon Burks. And then their backfield, the lead back is on the wrong side of well, he's 28, but he's past 27.
You
So
were in on Tony Pollard last episode.
yes, but this is the volatility segment.
The wrong side of 27.
Yes. So, yeah, we still don't know if their head coach is any good. Um, he was the offensive coordinator for Joe Burrow, but Joe Burrow can make anybody look good. Um, so yeah,
Yeah.
we'll just see on him. He could uh he could be inside the top 8 at this time next year, and he could
Hmm.
also be in the back end of the 20s,
Yeah.
where Bryce was at the beginning of this season. So.
This is a section you just slurp up because you are the king of the unknown. So
Yeah,
QBs here are probably the ones you like, but haven't been a Cam Ward supporter so far, so that's interesting. But um I have similar thoughts. Cam Ward was also in consideration here for me. He falls into the second tier of rushing quarterbacks, so I don't really see a top 5 consistent ceiling. So for me, I actually am the lowest on him. As mentioned, Cevan has him as QB 15. Tyler also has him as QB 15, and I have him as QB 22. So notably lower, but I just don't think my thoughts are that much different than them. I just was prefer the guys that I have ahead of him are guys that either have a higher ceiling, like Justin Fields, or guys who already do what he can do or what we want him to do, like Goff, Lawrence, Purdy, those types of guys, Baker, where I feel like if Cam Ward performs really well, he performs like those guys in front of him. So for me, just a little bit more confident in what those guys already bring. So I don't necessarily think my thoughts are different than Savant's, but just more so how my rankings reflected the risk I'm willing to take on someone without a major rushing upside like that.
yeah. One more thing to add on Kim Ward is I still am unsure. One more like big unknown with him is his rushing ability, because I think he's a guy who is capable of rushing, but we're gonna have to wait and see what form that is. If
How they
it's like,
deploy him. Yeah.
yeah, if it's a I'm rushing because I'm scrambling yards, or if he gets, I don't know, 3 design QB runs a game, which is
Hmm.
invaluable. And so the rushing floor for him that we're gonna see this year is gonna, I think,
Hmm.
tell a big story in the future.
Very fair. Tyler, you're 107 in the rookie draft this year.
Mhm.
Again, you also have him at consensus at QB 15.
Yeah, I don't have too much to add. He kind of fell into my lap at 107, so like being transparent, I wasn't the biggest Cam Ward believer before he landed at 107 to me in the rookie draft. But I'm totally fine with, you know, where he's being valued right now. I'm right in line with consensus and Cevan. So,
Savannah
I
is consensus.
sure. So I won't lie and I won't come on here and lie and say I'm way more bullish than anyone else. I see the upside, I see the downside. So, but I'm good to rock with it this year and see where we're at next
Mhm.
year.
Yeah. Tyler, your QB, Baker Mayfield, you have him as QB 16, which is
Hmm.
right at oh my God, I messed it up again. I wrote mine. God, okay, sorry, not again. Tyler has Baker as QB 13.
Yeah.
Typos I will fix for next time. His consensus is QB 16. Savannah's with you. He is a couple spots above consensus while I'm right at consensus. How is it possible for a 30-year-old quarterback to be high volatility? Give us the rundown.
Yeah, that's the thing. I wanted to pick someone a little bit different here, someone who wasn't super young. So Baker Mayfield last year, right? We've talked about how he threw 41 touchdown passes. I know we all generally think that number will reduce or be reduced, but I guess in my mind it's like I don't know how much that number, like maybe it's reduced by quite a bit, or maybe he's, in the high 30s, mid 30s with touchdown passes again. In the last 2 years, he's been a quarterback one, and then, the 2 years before that, he was irrelevant to bad, and then his first 3 years, he was mid. So over the course of his career, Baker's just kind of been up and down and all over. So this year I think he's pretty volatile. I'm not totally convinced that he will regress to some QB2 just because people think his passing touchdowns will be lower. They still have Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Jalen McMillan, and added Becca Egbuka. Rashad White and Bucky Irving are both good pass catching running backs, and
Say it.
their new offensive what?
Oh, never mind. Go ahead.
Okay. Their new offensive coordinator was promoted within, so I'm not entirely convinced that the offense will look a whole lot different. I think there'll be some similar things from last year. So I guess that makes me sound pretty bullish on Baker. However, I think the downside is that you have Chris Godwin, who was injured last year, he's coming off an injury this year, an aging Mike Evans, a rookie, and Mecca Egbuka and a new offensive coordinator. So there's a realm where he is kind of just a mid to low end QB2, which is a stark difference from, the upside case I just presented for him. So I don't know, I feel like I'm right in the middle there of those two results, but I do think there's volatility in his season this year. I don't know if I laid that out in a way that you guys
Hmm.
agree or
No,
disagree.
I think it makes a lot of sense. I think you're right on target, but I think I lean more towards the bottom side. Like, it's not necessarily how many touchdowns he threw, it's the rate in which he was throwing them. Like, I just don't expect him to throw it as often. Like, when he threw however often he throws a pass, the rate in which he was throwing them per pass was just really high. So I
Hmm.
expect that to regress some. But overall, I think you laid it out well. Like, he's been good. Like, why do we keep saying he's going to regress when he hasn't? He's only gotten better in a good system. So I like the way you laid it out, and I don't have any more thoughts. I think you did a good job. So on.
I just think it's extremely similar to like Jared Goff's situation.
I was going to say the same thing.
Yeah. And
I could
so
see
like
it.
um yeah, lose the coordinator, new coordinator, but same everything else around them. They've been good, still have good weapons. More or less just do they stay the same or do they decline for me? And uh Baker, I would probably make the same bet and say that he stays pretty similar to where he's ranked now.
Hmm. Very fair. Our last accolade here, hardest to rank. This is someone that we spent a lot of time on. We moved up, we moved down. We couldn't find the right spot for him, but we had to settle somewhere. So Savan, we're going to start with you, Geno Smith. Once again, we were told the Raiders are getting rid of the forward pass this year, according to some podcast guests. So, Geno Smith, you have at QB 24. His KTC value right now is at QB 27. So actually 3 spots above consensus. Um, I have him a couple spots above as well, and Tyler's right at consensus. So why was Geno Smith hard to rank for you?
Yeah, so I mean, we have a 3-year sample size now of Geno Smith being a quarterback, and I believe he's a good quarterback. He puts up the stats yards wise. The touchdowns have never really came for him. He doesn't provide too much rushing upside, especially being 34 years old now. And now you add a move to Las Vegas. I know he's reunited with Pete Carroll. They brought in Ashton Genty. They don't have DK Metcalf, but they do have Brock Bowers. So I think that's probably a wash at this point, in my opinion. Um, but yeah, what Pete Carroll showed was he wants to run the ball. Um, they brought in someone, an elite prospect to run the ball. While I am not under the impression that they're going to remove the forward pass, I do think there is what Ree would say a regression to the mean. I don't even know what that means. So that's actually sick. But if we look at his past performances, uh, the QB5 in his breakout year, then QB19 in 15 games, and then last year just outside the top 12 is QB13. Um, I I really just I it was hard to find a spot for him because I believe he's a good quarterback. I just don't know with being 34 years old in a new team with uh I guess a philosophy he's already worked with, but then the offensive coordinator being Chip Kelly who has always wanted to run the ball. And then not really being I don't think Jacoby's a wide receiver one.
Noted
Personally.
Jacoby Myers hater.
I don't think you can argue that he's a wide receiver one for an NFL team.
He's a perfectly fine second target on an NFL team,
Uh, sure, yeah,
which is what
but
he is.
as far as we'll agree to disagree on this. Um, but yeah, so I guess I ended up putting him higher than what KTC has him. Um, but he was just difficult to find a spot because the guys he's around are somewhat similar,
Hmm.
and
Yeah,
yeah,
for me, it was pretty. I felt really good about where he was because I have him. I mentioned it earlier. I have him in a tier with Tua, himself, Penix, Darnold. So like a lot of guys who, as you mentioned, you know, question how much is actually there. Not a lot of rushing upside, but overall, like good NFL quarterbacks, they just don't have the same fantasy value that they do as an NFL value. Like I think Geno's going to make a huge upgrade for the Raiders this year. I think they're going to be a much improved football team and someone that I think could make a huge jump. I mean, I don't think it's a hot take to say they're going to be a lot better than they were last year, but I think Geno's a good quarterback as well, and I think he's going to make a big upgrade to the Raiders. I didn't find him that hard to rank because we kind of know what he is. So
yeah,
I just don't really see a ceiling that gets him to be much higher. And even for me, like the kind of the next tier above him of pocket passers, as I mentioned earlier, like Dak, Baker, Trevor Lawrence, Jared Goff, like we've seen more out of them. And then you add in the new system and the age, and he's just a little bit lower for me, but feel confident that the value he provides is very steady. So, Tyler,
Yeah, I was
Gino,
gonna follow up with the same thoughts you had there, Reed. So that's how I
gotcha.
feel as well.
Okay, well, we'll go from one number seven to another number seven. My Justin Fields section, I thought he was incredibly difficult to rank. I moved him up and down a number of times. You, it's so hard to figure out the value, and this is something that
pause.
what?
That was a crazy statement. Sorry, go.
Let's hear it. I didn't. What did I say?
You said you moved him up and down a number of times.
That's a stretch. Come on, man.
No, it's not.
Okay,
You're
either way,
bouncing him up and down.
I it's Cevan, Tyler, and I have had a lot of heated discussions about what the value of 1 year of production is in a dynasty league. And obviously Fields is on a 2 year contract, but two, potentially one. It depends on what they want to do. But when Fields plays for fantasy football specifically, he is a locked and loaded top 12 quarterback. But how much value can you put on that when he may be back to being a backup next year? Like even if the Jets don't cut him, if their season goes poorly, he could be back to being a backup. They could trade him. Like you just don't know what you're getting past this year. But this year, like in redraft, he should be like you should be booking him as a top 12 quarterback. The rushing upside is immense. Any improvement on passing is just kind of gravy at this point. I just didn't really know what to do because how much is one season of essentially bona fide QB1 production worth? And as I mentioned, I put him in a tier with Bryce Young, Cam Ward, and JJ McCarthy, where I feel like his ceiling is immensely higher than those guys, but he could be useless after this year. So really hard for me to rank. And I still don't feel super confident in him here as opposed to the tier above him with Goff, Lawrence, Baker, Richardson, Dak. So my thoughts on Fields. I know we already talked about Fields. Cevan, do you have any thoughts on Fields here with hardest to rank? How did you feel about ranking him?
Um, I felt pretty good. I echo what you said in he's a guy you can really only comfortably rank him year to year until proven otherwise. And so guys like that are always going to be lower in a dynasty perspective. So and we were pretty similar I mean we were one spot apart in our ranking. So um yeah, I'm good with that.
Yeah, as it got mentioned earlier, he is KTC's QB 24, and he was somebody that all three of us had above consensus by a few spots. So, Tyler, do we need to kick it to you, or did you get all your Fields thoughts out?
Got it all out. And it was easy for me to do. He is in my top 20 dynasty quarterbacks.
Good call. Okay, last accolade here, Dak Prescott. He is your QB 20. Uh, KTC has him as QB 22, and again, all three of us are slightly above consensus on Dak. Why was he hard to rank for you?
All right. Well, QB for America's team. He's on the wrong side of 27 and 30. Um,
The wrong
since
side of all numbers.
yeah, since 2020, he's oscillated between injured and bad seasons with good seasons. So, I mean, last year was one of the bad seasons. He threw 8 games before he got injured. He had already thrown 8 interceptions. I don't know if all of those were his fault per se, but that was already one less than a full 2023 season. I generally don't know what to make of the Cowboys offense this year. The running game looks pretty uninspiring right now. I know they added George Pickens and they have CeeDee Lamb and Jake Ferguson, but at this, middle to older age, uh, in this middle to older age range for Dak Prescott, um, does that make sense? Middle to older
Middle to
age
older
range?
age, yeah. I think that
Yeah,
makes
something.
sense.
Okay, okay. I don't know what to make of him coming off a big injury last year. He definitely has earned respect in the past, but like I said, it's been pretty inconsistent from year to year, outside of his younger years. So I I'm pretty skeptical myself about how he will perform this year. But who am I to doubt the QB3 in 2023? So I kind of waffled between, feeling like I disrespected him too much and putting him down there with someone like Gino and Sam Darnold, something like that,
Hmm.
or putting him up near, Trevor Lawrence, Jared Goff, kind of
Yeah.
that tier above where he's at right now. So I really don't know what to make of Dak Prescott and generally the Cowboys offense
Hmm.
this year. So I feel like he might be a headache for you this year, Reed. Who can say? Um, yeah.
Well, I agree with everything you laid out there. I except for one thing. You said he oscillates between injuries and bad seasons, implying that there was minimal good seasons, if I heard what you said correctly.
I was implying there was minimal good
Well, you said he
seasons.
oscillates between injured seasons and bad seasons.
So sorry, injured slash bad and good
Okay, okay.
seasons.
That makes more sense. I was gonna say, like, when he's healthy over the past half decade, like he is a rare drop back quarterback that gets enough volume that he can has legitimate like top five upside. He has been a top five quarterback twice in the last half decade as nearly a pure drop back passer, especially now that he's had all the lower body injuries that he's had. And for me, he ranks at the top of that tier of proven drop back passers. But I totally understand where you're coming from. At the age that he's at, the notable injury history that he has, how much stock can you put into that? How much can you expect him to be like he used to be? I feel a little more confident in the Cowboys offense this year. I think it's quite clear, given the lack of investment in the running back position, that they are just going to air it out. And again, as the Dak Prescott owner in our league, I'm all for that. But at the same time, I also totally understand the hesitancy between or
Hmm.
behind his ranking. So,
Yeah.
Savan.
Yeah. For me, just sitting here staring at Dak for the last 5 minutes without just collecting my thoughts.
Analysis.
I want to move him higher now. Just
Oh
that's where my
shit.
thoughts got me. Um, as long as Dak's with CD, he's gonna be good for fantasy. Um, he's been good without a solidified number two option in the offense for a while. He is in his other year, um, which that's how it's been going.
Is the
Injured.
other year the good year or the bad year?
Yes. No, it's good. He was hurt last year, so
Okay.
yeah, he's in his other year, which is good. I think you play Dynasty in Windows of 3. I think he's got another 2 windows left. I think he's got 5 or 6 years left.
Wow.
Betting on Dak. Sorry, I didn't mean to say that. I would bet on Dak to be at minimum a top 10 quarterback. I would put him inside like the top 7 quarterbacks this year.
Wow.
Holy
I think the
That's pretty
glaze.
offense.
bold.
I want a piece when we draft LM. I want a piece of this offense. Whether it's I don't think Lamb's going to fall to me, but whether it's Pickens or Ferguson or Blue at the end, uh, this is an offense I'm buying a lot of stock into for a lot of reasons you guys mentioned. The running game, there won't be one. So with Blue, you're getting the checkdowns. That's who I would project, or that's who I would want in the backfield. That which lines up with my unknown vibe. But with Blue, you're getting passing work. Lamb, don't need to talk about him. Pickens, honestly, I'm getting a little bit of seller's remorse with trading him away. Pickens, you guys know I'm a big fan of, um, and I've seen nothing but uh, good with Pickens this offseason. Then Ferguson, I went on my rant. I think the addition of Pickens only helps Ferguson, and at the end of the day, it all helps Dak. And so uh, I'm gonna call my shot right now.
Wow.
I think this is the 5,000 yard season
Wow.
quarterback for Mr. Prescott, and so I think Reed is in a great situation. I know he doesn't provide any rushing value whatsoever, but having two of the league's best pocket passers, um, and then fuck it, we'll throw in Anthony Richardson, having the potential nuke waiting on the bench. I mean, I think I don't mean to turn this into a Glaze episode, but
No, the
I
new
think
Mr.
you have
Slurp.
I think you have like almost it's almost a perfect quarterback room just because of the volatility with Anthony Richardson. It's not, but with Dak, to me, if Anthony Richardson plays a full season, you have three locked in top 10 quarterbacks, and so
Wow.
yeah, the I want a piece of the Cowboys, and if I could move Dak up right now, I would.
If you right now you have him at QB 19,
19, yeah.
where would you put him off the top of the or just off the dome? How high would you want to move him?
Um, Ahead of Love,
Oh, yeah, I was
so
gonna say,
18.
let's just say
Ahead of
you have.
Trevor.
Would you move him ahead of Love, Trevor? Would you
I would
move him ahead
move
of
ahead of
Kyler?
I would move ahead of Bate. I would have him right behind McCarthy.
QB 14.
Yeah. So one spot
Interesting.
ahead of you.
Wow.
You
Well,
could say Cevan's the one moving Dak Prescott up and down.
some might say that. I think you should be this nice to my team all the time because that was glorious. And unfortunately, when Anthony Richardson is starting in week one, Dak will be on the bench because he's playing the Eagles in week one. So I don't want any piece of that. But after that, if I have three good fantasy quarterbacks, I'm gonna have to make tough decisions, and then that's almost worse than not having any decision to make with good players because then you kick yourself when you make the wrong decision. So I'm hoping for a prosperous quarterback season, but it could lead to a lot of those mental health issues you worried about with the fantasy team. Having everybody be good creates even more issues because then it creates the remorse. So
Yeah, I hope you like that.
I do like that. Uh, Probably a more of a quick segment here. We wanted to highlight a couple of players that all three of us had above consensus. We just talked about Dak. Savans goes even higher than QB 19 now. But we both had Caleb Williams a couple of spots above ADP. Obviously, when you're that high, it's pretty can't really be, 7 or 8 spots above consensus without seeming like a weirdo. So we all had him 2, 3, and 4 spots above consensus. And then Kyler as well, QB 17 in KTC. We all have him at least one, up to 6 spots higher. So we'll start. We'll keep this section brief because we don't want to do a whole breakdown here. But Tyler as the Kyler owner,
Yeah.
you have him 6 spots above ADP. Give us a brief rundown here on Kyler.
I think people are just a little bit fatigued with Kyler. Like he has been a dual threat quarterback his entire career, and he's been, a borderline QB1 at his best. So I think people are just used to the name and they want someone new like Jaden Daniels or Bo Nix or Cam Ward, JJ McCarthy, whoever it is, but Kyler Murray's been, consistently above average there. So
Hmm.
I'll take the safe floor of Kyler and, another year with great weapons and Marvin Harrison, Trey McBride, James Conner, all the above. I like Kyler this year, and I'm totally fine, with people still sleeping on him a bit.
Yeah. I think for me, my issue, I was all in on Kyler last year. Second year off the ACL, I drafted in my redraft league. I almost took him at 2-1 in our dynasty mock. Or dynasty inaugural draft. I was considering him heavily there because I thought people were sleeping that hard on him, and I just don't think he has the ceiling that he used to. Like when you think about at peak fantasy Kyler, like he was a weapon in the red zone with his legs, and that's just not what he wants to do anymore, which I totally respect. He's had an ACL tear now. He's had a couple of lingering injuries that have hurt him over his career. So I get the idea of wanting him to stay in the pocket more and not risk those hits. But at the same time, I just don't think he has. I could eat my words here, but I feel like I'd be pretty surprised given that he's not a prolific passer. He really needs to be a prolific runner, and I just don't think he is or wants to be anymore. So very, very safe, like back end QB1. I just don't know if we have the top 5 upside anymore, and that's why I have him a little bit lower than you. But I'd also agree that people are fatigued by him just being a good, not great quarterback that provides
Yeah.
value.
Yep.
Savan,
Yeah.
any Kyler thoughts, or do you just want to talk about your boy?
Not too many. I'm more even with consensus. Um, but yeah, the things to like, obviously, he's he's not going to be at your in your elite tier of rushing quarterback, but he's no slouch, as some might say. Uh, he's an above average rusher for fantasy purposes, and so just having that floor is nice. Then you throw in you have Trey McBride, you have year 2 of Marvin, and you have year 2 in the system overall, and so I think he's got 2 elite playmakers to throw the ball to, but kind of like well, I don't know if you said this, Reed, but his passing numbers are never going to be amongst the top of the league. Uh, and with that, the attempts, so the passing touchdowns are never going to get too high. So you really do need those that red zone rushing that he's gotten away from since his injuries, and so maybe that's why. Um, he's a little slept on, if you will. But yeah, Kyler to me is a year to year back end QB1 upside type
Year to
guy.
year, what does that mean?
Uh,
You mean
like
year to year, like Justin Fields, or year to year, like he's a consistent yearly back end quarterback one?
I have no idea.
Okay, we'll just pretend you didn't say that then.
Yeah, so
Okay,
that is all.
okay. Caleb Williams. I'm sure this one will be brief because we talked about Caleb Williams a lot in Deshaun's episode. All of us are a few spots ahead of consensus for me. He had 0 rushing touchdowns last year. He has someone who's honestly borderline pushing into tier 1. Like he is an incredibly mobile quarterback. You assume you'll get a couple of rushing touchdowns. You assume the offense has some improvement at the very least. So touchdowns go up, yards go up. Caleb as a quarterback goes up. So I just think he's a little bit low because, again, even if his median outcome is lower, I think his ceiling is still really high. There's a reason he was ranked as high as he was. He was a very, very good prospect. So the weapons are all there. Everything is perfectly in place for him to make maybe not necessarily the jump to the elite tier, but definitely a jump from what he did last year. And I don't think anyone here disagrees with that. So, Tyler, any thoughts on Caleb, or just hit to Savan real quick?
Yeah, go to Cevan.
Savan, you got a minute 30 in this recording session. What do you got?
Yeah, for Caleb, the interesting thing seeing us all have him inside the top 10, um, I think that's just a bet on the environment that he is now currently in. One of the big things which Reed and I have talked about with Anthony Richardson was his inability to want to just take the easy plays. Um, and from what I've seen is that's one of the things Ben Johnson has been hammering home to Caleb is if you see it, take it, let them do the work for you. And so I think that's going to be one of the biggest areas of improvement for him to take that next step. And so, like Reed was saying, he had all the talent coming out of the draft. He still got all the talent, and then you pair him with someone who's widely regarded as the league's best play caller currently. Good things are expected to happen. And with the investment they've made in the trenches and all the new playmakers they have, he's nothing short of excellence. And Luther Burden is the GOAT.
Stud. And naturally, on the flip side of this, players that were below consensus on, not a whole lot needs to be said here. We've talked about all three of these quarterbacks, some of them vibes based, two of them vibes based actually from what we talked about, and then Michael Penix. So for just quickly on Jordan Love, for me, I thought I was in a good spot at QB 14. I was surprised that his KTC ranking was as high as it was. Like obviously, like he's not nearly as young as other quarterbacks with his level of experience, but I was shocked how aggressive it was. So I just don't know. Again, the rushing upside is solid, but not elite. And we just watched a year where he kind of struggled in and out. The Packers was hurt, didn't throw as much as they probably could have or wanted to. So I am a Jordan Love fan. I think he's someone that was in the contention for a riser for me. Like I could see him in a good year going up to QB, 7 or 8. But I was surprised how aggressive his KTC ranking was. Definitely shouldn't be behind JJ McCarthy, but we've talked about that. Tyler, any Jordan Love thoughts?
No, yeah, I'm no similar to you.
Okay. We've talked about Jackson Dart. We talked about Penix. Anyone have anything else to say on the slide, or are we just gonna
I
we
was
good to
just
move
gonna
on
say
here?
I don't think Jackson Dart was vibe space. I think that
Okay,
was
sorry.
us
Yes, it
reading
started vibes based, and then I think we got to a good place.
reading the situation
Yep,
that is going
agreed,
on in New York.
agreed.
I'm a Penix hater, Cevan. I think he's ass.
That's fine.
Well, he better be better than Patrick Mahomes because he's barely a quarterback one at this point. So, okay, now the fun part, the time we've all been waiting for. We have our rankings split up here. As mentioned a number of times, we had players tiered out, which is the color. We don't have a specific name for the tier. It's just tier one, tier two, tier three. They're colored based on that. You have the tier number. Cevan in the first column, Tyler in the second column, me in the third column. We're not going to talk about every quarterback here. We've touched on some of them, but there are a couple of important points here. And the first one I wanted to note was that I was the only one that had Jalen Hurts in my top tier. And for me, as much as everybody hates the tush push, the dude is elite at it. The Eagles are elite at it. And adding those 6 or 7 rushing touchdowns every year cannot be understated how much that adds. And I
12
think
to 12 to 15 rushing
well, yeah, but
touchdowns.
but but not all of his rushing touchdowns are from the tush push. He just
Oh,
has
yeah, yeah, yeah.
general rushing value outside of that.
Gotcha.
And you look at what the Eagles did last year. I mean, they were one of the best rushing teams of all time. Like they're not going to be able to run the ball as much as they did last year. Like that's not good for Saquon. That's not good for the offensive line. Like they're going to pass the ball more, and that benefits Jalen Hurts both from a passing perspective and from a potential scramble perspective. So I just think for me, Jalen Hurts is somebody that where his NFL value is not nearly as high as his fantasy value. And I think people kind of hold that against him sometimes because we all know that Jalen Hurts is not the same NFL quarterback that Lamar and Josh Allen are. But in fantasy, like I think it's undeniable that he's in that top tier. And unless the tush push gets banned and it didn't, there's no reason to move him out of that tier. So um, just quick to you guys, Jalen Hurts not in your top tier. Tyler has him considerably below the top tier. So I'll go to Cevan first. Did you consider having him in the top tier, or was he a clear tier break for you after Jaden?
Personally, no, I did not consider he was a clear tier break. And the big uh I agree with what you're saying, but the biggest differentiator for me was I don't think specifically if we want to just compare him and Jaden, I don't think the way he plays football is going to last as long. I think he's going to
Hmm.
be similar to like Cam Newton fizzled out early in his 30s, because of the like I would take Jane Daniels, the passer, over Jalen Hurts right now.
Hmm.
And so at a certain point in your career, like kind of like Lamar Jackson, in my opinion, is going to have to. Well, Lamar Jackson's a great passer actually, so that's a bad example. But I don't think Jalen Hurts, the passer, is on the level of the passers I have,
So
the three above him. And so I
essentially,
think
you're
he'll.
saying that you think once his physicality leaves, his fantasy relevance tanks, and you think that's coming sooner rather than later.
I would bet on it to happen earlier than the guys I have ahead
Hmm.
of him.
That's fair.
With Jaden, obviously, because he's younger, but Lamar's just a different athlete, and Lamar's an elite passer of the football at this point.
Hmm.
And then Josh Allen is a unicorn. He'll literally never get hurt, and he's a great passer. So
Okay. Literally never get hurt. We'll book that on the podcast.
he
Um,
hasn't to date. He's played every single game that, except for obviously the last week, which
and
doesn't
has
count.
yet to play in the Super Bowl as well. Tyler, Jalen
Yeah.
Hurts, his KTC is quarterback 5, so you're not necessarily, again, when you're up this high, you can't feasibly
Hmm.
be that high or low compared to consensus, but you did have him considerably lower than us. So Jalen Hurts, not a fan.
No, I'm honestly not a huge fan. I echo a lot of the same concerns with Cevan about the passing and, what's he like without that physicality. And I honestly just like the guys above him more. I mean, yeah, no brainer. So I'm completely fine putting him at 6 there. I still have him in my second tier, so it's not like
Hmm.
he's being completely
Yeah,
disrespected.
definitely.
Quick note I'll say though is I just saved that first tier for Lamar and Josh Allen just because they have been year in year out, a top 5 quarterbacks. So that was the clear cut tier 1 for me, and those are the only two there for me.
Hmm.
So everyone else is in that second tier for me is pretty close, but not quite there
I
compared to
think
those two.
what you meant to say was you reserved those 2 spots because they're on Ian's team.
Okay.
Okay, I don't think there's a lot of other controversial stuff in this slide. Savan is just waiting to get his Drake May piece in. We've got his team breakdown episode where the milkman was invented, banging his drum, all the good stuff in his episode. Go check that one out. But Savan, I will give you a crisp 60 seconds here to give a Drake May soapbox stump speech.
One thing I will say, so these ranks currently are where we have them. KTC has Drake May at QB7, which I have him at QB8. That's probably a little biased. I just think that is insane that he's that high at QB7.
I agree.
But there's a lot of things to like. Obviously, he comes built in with a rushing floor, which was I think it was a pleasant surprise. He didn't play a full season, but his pace for the season would have been well over 700 rushing yards, which is invaluable in fantasy. Um, the investments that they made, getting him two receiving playmakers, one in a proven NFL vet, Stephon Diggs, and then they spent a fourth or third round pick, one or the other, on
Third.
Kyle Williams. Yeah, so they're gonna have two new starting wide receivers. They completely rehauled the offensive line, bringing in five new starters. They have a top five pick in Will Campbell at left tackle. They brought in a vet at right tackle and Morgan Moses. They drafted a center who was going to be starting at guard this year because they brought in the old Viking center in Garrett Bradbury, and I can't remember one of the guards, but completely overhauled the offensive line. They brought in Travion Henderson with a top 40 pick. He was one of the best pass blockers in the league or in the draft. And then you add in, uh, he was the back that I compared to Jahmyr Gibbs in the offseason. So seeing him go, I'm not saying he's going to be Jahmyr Gibbs. It's just the play style, but he's going to provide massive receiving value. Then you bring in the offensive coordinator Josh McDaniels, who is a proven coordinator in the league. Fizzled out as a head coach a couple of times, but He was a coordinator for a long time with Tom Brady, not comparing Drake May to Tom Brady. Uh, but it needs to be said, Drake May, I think I have him appropriately ranked at QB8. He's one of the guys that uh, I think the whole fantasy community
He's like one of those
is,
most obvious like breakout picks that's like ever
yes,
happened. Like
yes,
consensus,
Mhm.
everybody's like this guy, like this is the guy who has the ceiling that you can get outside the top. Like in redraft, I think
yep,
he's drafted at like quarterback 16. Like he is
yeah, double
like the
digits.
guy that
Yeah.
everybody agrees.
And
So
so I think he could, like this time next year, realistically, I think he could be probably as high as QB4. Um, Considering we just saw Jaden Daniels, I think he was QB1 at some point on KTC.
he
Um,
fluctuates back and forth between one and
yeah,
two right
and
now.
that was between like 3,500 passing yards and 800 rushing yards ish. So that's definitely in the cards of Drake, in my opinion. So
Mhm. Okay, got that out of the way now. But yeah, Tyler and I are both a little bit lower than you, but we're both still in a very reasonable rate for Drake May here. So Um, onto the second tier here. Nothing majorly sticks out to me here that I wanted to discuss in particular. Obviously, as you can see, Cevan's tiers are a little bit off from the sizes compared to Tyler and I, so a little bit hard to translate back and forth overall. But as we talked about, Cevan's Dak Prescott moves up, and Anthony Richardson appears on this screen for me. I think this is, as I mentioned, I understand it's an aggressive ranking, but I don't think it's crazy that a month from now, if he's the starting quarterback at the Colts, that we're seeing him in this area as the ceiling that he has. And we've talked about just about every player on this screen at one point or other. I think CJ Stroud is someone who hasn't got mentioned yet.
I actually was just gonna mention that you and Cevan both have CJ Stroud outside your top 10, and I have him
Hmm.
just inside my top 10. So maybe you guys could talk about
Yeah.
that real quick.
I for me, it all comes down to the rushing upside again. He just doesn't have that. And again, so I have him at 11. Savant has him at 11. Tyler has him at 9. Tyler and I have him in the same tier. I don't know what Savant's tier equates to normal tiers for, but yeah, I do have belief that it gets closer to his 20 or his rookie levels. I don't think it's going to be as disastrous as it was last year. I think Nico Collins is a badass. I think their offensive line should get better, new play caller. Like I have full confidence that he gets back to the quarterback that we all thought he was, that made him the 102 in our inaugural draft this time last year. So I have full confidence in him. I just the other guys that I had ahead of him, like Bo Nix, Caleb, and Drake May in the same tier, they all have a displayed rushing floor that CJ Stroud doesn't show. So that's really all it was for me. I'm still a fan. Savon, I don't know if you had any other thoughts.
yeah, fan of CJ Stroud. This is more of a projection again. I think CJ Stroud is a perfect example of people overreacting to rookie years. I don't think he was a clear sophomore slump candidate, but it showed that shit like that can happen. And so the tumultuous season he had last year, I expect him to get uh, back to the top 12 and for people not to exaggerate and maybe just take CJ Stroud for what he's going to be. And if he's going to be a back end QB1, there's nothing wrong with that because of
Hmm.
the really no rushing upside, but they reinvested into his playmakers. And so, um, yeah, I think
Yeah,
a bit of a projection,
I
but
say
he's you can't deny the talent with him.
yeah, he's another case where his fantasy value is just a little bit lower than his NFL value because of the rushing that is so important for quarterbacks. So full confidence that he gets back, but it just doesn't have the same ceiling because of the legs. So nothing else here. Last little portion here. Again, I don't really know what's going on with Savant's tiers, but we all kind of have a generally similar group here. Tyler has the Saints third string quarterback Tyler Shuck at number 29, behind Jake Hayner right now, running in camp. And Fields, for me at the top of this one was tough to put there, and you see where Savant has him at 22 as well. So one person I did want to talk about, we talked about him at least twice already, but I think Jalen Milrow is such an intriguing piece at this point. Like when you think about if he starts, he almost immediately becomes like a top 12 quarterback. because the rushing upside that he possesses is so immense, but he's also not a guarantee to ever start an NFL game in his entire career. So it's such a weird spot to have a guy that you could legitimately have half a season of, and he becomes a number one slide guy for 1 to 10, have it 29. But it's just such a weird spot. But he was really interesting for me to rank because I didn't really know how to value that. Of could score 0 points in his career, could score 20 points per game next year. So, um, do you guys have any other thoughts on this slide? Anybody on this slide? Again, we've talked about damn near everybody at one point or another. I don't think we talked about Darnold at all. Hopefully Stafford's healthy. Does anyone else have anything to say on this one?
I was just gonna say, I think. Well, do you want to go first, Cevan, or
Sure, yeah. I wanted to put Milrow on to kind of talk about him and Darnold combined. I believe uh, Tyler had a hot take about something with them being related, and I've came to the conclusion that I believe Sam Darnold is actually he is bad at football. I think he was a product of his environment. Um, I don't think him going to San Francisco for a year helped him at all. I truly just believe it was Kevin O'Connell, and so I do think we see Jalen Milrow sooner rather than later, even though Darnold got a 3-year contract.
It's basically a
Only one
1 year
year,
contract.
yeah, 1 year guaranteed. Milrow is super fun. He's right in that Fields, Anthony Richardson category. I just wanted to kind of put him on here just so, I mean, we're we were here first talking about Milrow, basically. Uh, if he gets on the field to start a full game, I don't remember who has him.
Sandy.
Sandy. That would be very tempting not to put into the lineup if he
Hmm.
was an asset on my team.
Yep. Agreed. He'd be someone that I would be almost unafraid to put him in week one
Yeah,
that if he's starting, just because, like you said, it doesn't really matter how good of a thrower he is because his rushing upside is crazy. He's an insane athlete at the position. And, the only hesitancy I would have is the Seahawks going from Darnold to Milrow. Do they have a system in place that can actually maximize that? Because they're basically changing their entire playbook. And that's why I don't know if it was in the draft episode or in Sandy's episode, talking from Tyler's hot take that Jalen Milrow starts games for him this year. Like, if they're in season, could they just pivot to Drew Lock and they signed Drew Lock again, right?
yes,
Could they just pivot to Drew Lock since he, from a stylistic perspective, is closer to Darnold, even if Milrow might present more tantalizing upside? Like, unless their season's over already, I wouldn't be surprised if they just pivoted to Lock, who may give them a better chance to win right now. But
for
Milrow
sure.
is
Like
really interesting.
Milrow is definitely a developmental guy, but to some extent, you have to draft a guy knowing you have a plan for him. So if
Hmm.
in a pinch, if you had to put a scheme together, I'm sure
Yeah.
that they talked about can they do that?
At least
And
some stuff already installed, like packages to get him
yeah,
running the ball.
and yeah, backfield of him and K9 and Charbonnet on each side in a split set, that would be very fun to watch.
I don't think we need Charbonnet out there. We can just put Kenneth
come
Walker out there, and he's good
on?
enough for both
Okay,
of them.
sure.
We will talk about Kenneth Walker next week. Don't worry, we'll talk all about Kenneth Walker next week. Again,
Tyler, what'd you have to say?
I was just gonna say, I think I could make an argument to you guys that Matthew Stafford should not be on either of you guys' top 30 quarterbacks list. I know he's one of those guys that who's a better NFL quarterback than fantasy quarterback, but he's been dealing with some injuries this training camp. He's 37 years old. And I think I'd personally would rather like I'd put Rodgers, I think, up there before Stafford. I know like Rodgers has said this is last year, but it feels like this could possibly be Stafford's last year as well.
we'll see if Stafford
I
even makes it to the season.
Oh,
and also like Russell Wilson, I think you could make an argument to put in your top 30 above him. I think there's like maybe Dylan Gabriel. I don't
No,
know.
don't. Still, let's
So,
chill. Okay.
okay,
wait.
but
I wanna push back on you saying Rodgers because one, Rodgers is 3 years older. He has
okay, that
he has
that
no
does not
no no
matter
no
at
no no
this
no. No.
point.
He's got well, Stafford has two receivers better than anything that the Steelers have. They have
Okay,
yes, Puka
okay,
and Devontae are better than DK.
okay.
it's just for me, like Stafford is like the guy, like he has the biggest gap between his NFL reputation and his fantasy reputation. Like he is truly like a top 10 NFL quarterback. And
He's
he
li-
just doesn't have the same fantasy. Like he is the standard for that gap, and he's the standard for what a statue is. Like he just doesn't have that anymore, and they don't have the same volume that he had with the Lions when they were terrible. So he approaches 5,000 yards, and for me, like until it becomes a real issue, I'm not going to treat it as a real issue because I don't want to like I feel like if there were real signs that he might like retire or miss a bunch of time that we would probably know by now. It seems like again, he is as old as he is. Why would they, if he's got a little bit of soreness, why would they make him go through training camp? He's going to
Yeah.
be fine for week one. So until we know it's an issue, I'm not going to treat it as an issue.
yeah, to me, he's like the Justin Herberts of Jalen Warrens.
What the hell does that
Stop.
mean?
Yeah.
Do you want to explain that
He's talking
briefly?
about something like what if related.
Okay, whatever. It is also the number 30 spot. He's probably, well, actually, I guess he might start for Trent week one just because JJ McCarthy is still an unknown. But I think ideally for Trent, JJ McCarthy is in that spot for most of the season.
Last thing I'll say on this is I can hear your argument about Russell Wilson. I can't on Aaron Rodgers, but the only reason I put Stafford in is because at this point, I mean, Russ technically offers a smidge of rushing value, but playmaker wise and team overall wise, the
Well,
the Rams, I know.
no, I was
Malik
gonna say the other.
is
No, I was gonna say the other
gone.
aspect is that Russell Wilson might start for 3 or 4 games. Like
Yeah,
Stafford is good as long as he's healthy, he will start all year. As long as
yeah,
Rodgers is healthy, I guess technically Rodgers could get benched for Will Howard if things go haywire. But like Rodgers is probably starting the whole year. Like Russell Wilson's the only one of those three that could theoretically get benched.
yeah, and he's going to be on another new team in a year. There's just a lot
So
less variables with Stafford.
we're also arguing about the 29th and 30th quarterbacks that I don't even remember actually putting Stafford there. It could have been Russell Wilson and I wouldn't have said anything. So I'm not super worried about that either way. So wrapping up here. Any final thoughts from you guys? I don't know about you guys. I had a blast. I thought this was really fun. I don't know if anyone
Yeah,
is ever going to listen to all of this. Maybe this will be the pod that takes it off because I thought we had a lot of fun. But any other thoughts from you guys?
I
no,
think this will you guys fun.
this was definitely fun. I think this was since we started the team. This was probably my favorite episode so far that we recorded. I think there was a lot of good discourse on a bunch of names, and we were all civil and
Not always a
cordial.
guarantee on the podcast.
Yes, but this was a blast.
Tyler?
Yeah. I was just gonna, you said this one was civil, and I was gonna say I think this will be the most civil one we do. I
Hmm.
think running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends,
At least
that'll
the
be
top of tight ends will be not civil.
yeah, that'll be when the screws come loose, and we'll see if we're still doing this in a month.
Yeah,
Uh,
Tyler and I talked a lot leading up to this that QBs are definitely the most chalky position. Like there's like general like obviously you'll have ups and downs, but like generally we didn't have anybody that was like completely out of whack. But like for the most part, it's easy to say civil when we all mostly agree. But I definitely could see over the next 2 episodes from running backs and wide receivers to get some stuff going. So yeah, wrapping up top 30 dynasty quarterbacks. Take advantage of us, use those in trades, throw it in our faces. But we had fun. We'll see you next week for our top 40 dynasty running backs.